6 weeks after the incident in Bay 7, Dr. Velnara stood before the Galactic Medical Council. The council chamber was massive, designed to accommodate representatives from dozens of species. Hundreds of doctors filled the seats, their various forms creating a strange and beautiful tapestry of galactic diversity. All of them had come to hear about the humans. Velnara's presentation was titled simply, Humans, Understanding Death World Biology. The lights dimmed, and her first slide appeared on the enormous screen behind her. It was Jiho's original X-ray, the image that had started everything, a skeleton that looked like a battlefield. This is the skeletal scan of a human male, age 32, employed as a maintenance engineer, Velnara began. Her voice was steady despite her nervousness. When I first saw this scan, I believed I was looking at a victim of torture or prolonged combat. I was wrong. She clicked to the next slide. It showed a list of injuries and their causes. Roof fall, skateboarding accident, baseball impact, motorcycle crash. These injuries occurred during what humans call a normal childhood, Velnara continued. Each injury would be fatal or permanently disabling to most species represented in this room. The human in question survived all of them and considers himself unlucky for having so many accidents. A murmur ran through the audience. Some doctors leaned forward with interest. Others looked skeptical. Velnara continued through her presentation, showing more X-rays, more data. She explained her investigation of the other humans on Harmony's Rest. She showed comparative charts of bone density, healing rates, and survival statistics. Humans evolved on a planet they call Earth, she explained. By galactic standards, Earth is classified as a high-risk world. Higher gravity, extreme weather, aggressive predators, and thousands of deadly diseases. But humans call it home. They call it beautiful, because to them this dangerous world is normal. She showed images of Earth, massive storms that could destroy cities, predators that weighed several tons, temperature variations that ranged from freezing to boiling, volcanoes, earthquakes, floods. Humans didn't just survive on this world, Velnara said. They thrived. They became the dominant species, and in the process they evolved to be almost unkillable. That word caused an immediate reaction. Several council members began speaking at once, their voices overlapping in protest. High Scholar Vex, a Pelkrian with authority over the council, raised his primary appendage for silence. Dr. Velnara, that's a strong claim. Surely you're exaggerating. Let me show you, Velnara replied. She brought up the data from the Bay 7 incident, the timeline of the decompression, the death of the 3 alien crew members within seconds, and Jiho's vital signs continuing for nearly a full minute. This human survived 57 seconds of hard vacuum exposure, she stated. His body shut down non-essential functions. His cells went into a survival mode we don't fully understand. His heart stopped and restarted multiple times. And ultimately he lived. The chamber was completely silent now. He recovered fully. Velnara continued. No permanent brain damage. No loss of function. Within 2 weeks, he returned to work. This is not an outlier. This is normal human resilience. She showed more data, statistics on human survival rates across different types of injuries, falls, impacts, blood loss, burns, diseases. In every category, humans survived at rates 2 to 3 times higher than the galactic average. Their bones break and heal stronger, she explained. They call this healing. We would call it biological reinforcement. Their skin regenerates over large wounds. Their livers can regrow if partially removed. They have 2 of most major organs, providing redundancy. If one kidney fails, the other compensates. If one lung is damaged, they adapt. Dr. Thek stood up from his seat in the audience. I've personally verified Dr. Velnara's findings. I've treated human patients who should have died. They didn't. Not because of exceptional medical care, but because their bodies refused to accept death. Another doctor spoke up, a Crothian trauma specialist. But surely they feel pain? Surely they suffer from these injuries? Of course they do, Velnara confirmed. Humans feel pain intensely, perhaps more intensely than many species. But they have something else, something that might be even more important than their physical resilience. She clicked to her next slide. It showed a simple word in various languages. Spite. Humans have a psychological trait they call spite, Velnara explained. It means doing something difficult just to prove it can be done. When a doctor tells a human they'll never walk again, that human often recovers specifically to prove the doctor wrong. When they're told something is impossible, They want to do it more. She showed case studies, humans who had recovered from paralysis, humans who had survived diseases with 5% survival rates, humans who had accomplished incredible feats of endurance and strength. This mental resilience is as important as their physical resilience, Velnara said. When a human is injured, they don't just heal. They fight to heal. They refuse to accept disability or death. They have a saying, "I didn't hear no bell." It means they won't stop fighting until someone officially tells them the fight is over. And sometimes not even then. High Scholar Vex spoke again. Dr. Velnara, what you're describing sounds almost like a weapon. A species designed for war. No, Velnara said firmly. Humans aren't weapons. They're survivors. There's a difference. They don't seek violence. They seek to live. Their resilience evolved because their planet was trying to kill them every day. They learned to adapt or die. They chose to adapt. She showed the final data slide. It was a comparison of different species' approaches to severe injury. Most species had high fatality rates and long recovery times. Humans had lower fatality rates and shorter recovery times, but with a notable pattern. Humans who survive trauma often return to the activity that caused the trauma, Velnara pointed out. The human who fell from a roof continues to do roof repair. The human who crashed a motorcycle buys another motorcycle. The human who survived vacuum exposure returns to space work. They don't let fear control them. They learn from the experience and continue forward. A medical ethicist from the Quilxian delegation stood up. Doctor, are you suggesting we should employ more humans in dangerous positions because they're more likely to survive? I'm not suggesting anything about employment, Velnara clarified. I'm presenting medical data so that we can better treat human patients. But I will say this. If a dangerous situation requires someone who can survive catastrophic injury, a human is statistically your best choice. The presentation continued for another hour. Velnara answered questions, provided additional data, and explained her recommended changes to medical protocols. By the end, the Council had voted unanimously to implement new human-specific emergency procedures across all Galactic Coalition stations. After the formal presentation ended, several doctors approached Velnara personally. They wanted copies of her research. They wanted to study human medicine more closely. Some wanted to meet human patients themselves. Dr. Thex pulled her aside. That was excellent. You've changed how the entire galaxy will view humans, have I? Velnara wondered. I'm not sure if I've helped them or made them seem like curiosities to be studied. You've given them respect, Thex said. Before, many species saw humans as weak newcomers, soft creatures from a paradise world. Now they'll be seen as survivors, as equals who earned their place in the galaxy. High Scholar Vex approached them, his movement slow and deliberate. Dr. Velnara, I have a question I didn't ask during the presentation. A personal question. Yes, High Scholar? You've spent months studying human resilience. You've seen their injuries, watched them recover, documented their survival. So I ask you, are humans unkillable? Velnara thought about Jiho laughing about his broken bones. She thought about Hyun, flying shuttles despite a shattered spine. She thought about all the humans who had been broken and had simply refused to stay broken. No, High Scholar, she said carefully. Humans can die. They do die, but they die hard. They don't die easy, and they don't die without a fight. She paused, finding the right words. When I look at a human's X-ray, when I see all those old injuries and healed fractures, I see a story of survival against incredible odds. Their skeletons are maps of pain and recovery. Their bodies are proof that breaking doesn't mean broken. Looking at their medical scans is like looking at someone who's been through hell and refused to stay there. She pulled up Jiho's X-ray one more time on her personal data pad, showing it to the High Scholar. This is what it looks like when someone tries to kill a god, Velnara said quietly. All these injuries, all this damage, it should have ended this human's life dozens of times. But it didn't, because the god won. The human won. And they always find a way to win, even when winning seems impossible. High Scholar Vex studied the image for a long moment. That's both beautiful and terrifying. Yes, Velnara agreed. It is. As the conference ended and the doctors dispersed, Velnara received a communication on her datapad. It was from Jiho. Hey Doc, heard your presentation went well. When I get back from my current job, want to grab some Earth food at the station cafe? I think you'd like pizza. It's basically bread with stuff on it and it's great for celebrating. You deserve to celebrate. 3 weeks after Jiho's examination, disaster came to Harmony's Rest. It started with a routine docking procedure. A cargo ship called the Merchant's Hope was connecting to Bay 7 when something went wrong. A faulty pressure seal, a miscalculated approach, and a moment of terrible luck combined into catastrophe. The docking clamp punched through the bay wall instead of connecting properly. The breach was instant and total. The station's emergency alarms screamed to life. Red lights flashed throughout every corridor. Automated bulkheads began slamming shut, trying to contain the decompression. But Bay 7 had 4 crew members inside when it happened. In the medical bay, Velnara heard the alarm and immediately pulled up the emergency monitor. Her heart sank when she saw the breach location. Bay 7 was on her medical route. Those were her patients. The station's computer listed the crew members trapped in the bay. 2 Quilxians named Rila and Ven, 1 Crothian named Thex Jr., and 1 human Jiho Kim. No, Velnara whispered. After everything she had learned about human resilience, the thought of Jiho dying in vacuum seemed impossible. But space was the ultimate killer. No species could survive in vacuum for more than a few seconds, humans included. The emergency response team mobilized immediately. They had to seal the breach and repressurize the bay. But the computer estimated it would take at least 2 minutes to reach the bay, assess the damage, and begin repairs. In space, 2 minutes was an eternity. Velnara watched the vital signs monitor with growing horror. The Quilxian signals went flat within 10 seconds. Their bodies couldn't handle the sudden pressure loss. Thex Jr. lasted 15 seconds longer, his thicker biology buying him a few more heartbeats. Then his signal flatlined too. But Jiho's vital signs were still registering. It made no sense. 30 seconds of vacuum exposure should have killed him. The air in his lungs would have expanded violently. His blood would have started to boil. The lack of oxygen would have shut down his brain. Yet somehow, impossibly, the monitor showed a weak but persistent heartbeat. 40 seconds. 45. 50. Velnara ran toward Bay 7, grabbing an emergency medical kit as she went. Other doctors and nurses followed her. They all knew it was probably too late, but they had to try. The rescue team reached the bay first. Through their helmet cameras, Velnara watched as they forced open the emergency access door and entered the depressurized space. The scene inside was grim. The 3 alien crew members were clearly dead, their bodies floating in the zero gravity. And then they found Jiho. He was unconscious, his face blue and swollen. His eyes were bloodshot. The blood vessels burst from the pressure change. His exposed skin showed signs of frostbite. His body was rigid, every muscle locked in place. But the medical scanner and the rescue team leader's suit showed something incredible. "He's alive," the team leader reported, his voice filled with disbelief. "Heart rate is weak but present." "He's still alive. Get him out now," Velnara ordered. "Emergency medical bay immediately." The team grabbed Jiho and pulled him through the airlock. They got him into a pressurized corridor and started emergency procedures. Velnara arrived seconds later and took over. Jiho wasn't breathing. His heart had stopped. She began resuscitation, pushing down on his chest in the rhythm she had learned from human medical texts. 30 compressions, 2 breaths. 30 compressions, 2 breaths. Nothing happened. She kept going. Other medical staff arrived and started hooking up equipment. They inserted a breathing tube. They started fluids through an IV line. They attached monitoring devices. How long was he exposed? Someone asked. 57 seconds, another voice answered. 57 seconds in hard vacuum. No species survived that. It was medically impossible. Velnara compressed his chest again and again. She was about to call it, to declare him dead, when she felt something change. A flutter under her hands. A weak contraction. "Wait," she said. "I've got something." The heart monitor beeped. Once. Twice. A rhythm was starting. "He's coming back," Thex said from beside her, his voice awed. "His heart is restarting on its own." They rushed Jiho to the medical bay and placed him in an emergency treatment pod. Velnara and her team worked on him for 8 hours straight. They had to drain fluid from his lungs. They had to treat the frostbite on his face and hands. They had to stabilize his blood pressure and oxygen levels. Twice more his heart stopped, and twice more they brought him back. But he held on. Despite everything, despite injuries that should have killed him 3 times over, Jiho Kim held on. On the second day, his vital signs stabilized. On the third day, his brain activity returned to normal patterns. And on the fourth day, he woke up. Velnara was at his bedside when his eyes opened. Those eyes were still bloodshot, the white stained dark red from burst vessels, but they were focused and aware. "Doc?" Jiho's voice was a rough whisper. "What happened?" Velnara felt something she hadn't expected. Relief so strong it made her hands shake. "You were exposed to vacuum for almost a minute," she said. "You should be dead." Jiho tried to smile, though it clearly hurt. "Should be, but I'm not?" "No, you're not." Over the next few days, Velnara monitored Jiho's recovery closely. She documented everything: the way his damaged lungs slowly regained function, the way the frostbite healed faster than it should, the way his body simply refused to accept death. She ran cognitive tests. No brain damage. His memory was intact. His reasoning was clear. Somehow, despite being starved of oxygen, his brain had survived. "How are you feeling?" she asked during one examination. "Like I got hit by a cargo ship," Jiho admitted. "Everything hurts. My eyes are killing me, but I'm alive, so I can't complain too much." "You exposed yourself to vacuum," Velnara said, "for almost a minute. Do you understand how impossible your survival is?" Jiho nodded slowly. "The other crew members didn't make it, did they?" "No," Velnara said quietly. "I'm sorry." Jiho was silent for a moment. "They were good people. Rella was teaching me Quilxian poetry. Ven always shared his lunch with me. Thex Jr. wanted to be a doctor like his parent. Their biology couldn't withstand the vacuum," Velnara explained gently. "They died quickly. There was no suffering. But I survived because I'm human," Jiho said. "It wasn't a question. Yes, your body held on longer. Your cells tolerated the lack of oxygen better. Your heart kept trying to beat even when it should have stopped. You survived because you're human." Jiho looked at his hands, at the frostbite scars that were already fading. "I don't feel special. I just feel lucky." "It's not luck," Velnara said. "It's biology. It's evolution. It's a million years of your species refusing to die." The station commander came to visit Jiho on the fifth day. She was a tall Pelkrian named Commander Yex, and she looked uncomfortable. "Mr. Kim," she said formally, "I want to apologize. The accident was due to equipment failure. We should have caught it during maintenance checks." "It's okay," Jiho said. "Accidents happen." "You're very gracious," Commander Yex said. "I also want you to know that we're revising our emergency procedures. The rescue team assumed everyone in the bay would be dead. They didn't expect to find survivors. If they had known a human could survive that long, they would have moved faster." "You couldn't have known," Jiho replied. But Commander Yex shook her head. "We should have known. Dr. Velnara's research on human resilience has been shared with the command staff. We should have factored it into our emergency protocols. We won't make that mistake again." After the commander left, Velnara stayed with Jiho. She watched him struggle through physical therapy, learning to walk again after days in bed. She watched him push through pain that would have broken most species' will to continue. She watched him joke with the nurses even though every breath hurt. And she finally understood something important. Human resilience wasn't just about surviving damage. It was about refusing to let damage define you. Jiho could have been traumatized by the accident. He could have quit his job, asked for transfer to a safer position, spent the rest of his life afraid of space. Instead, 2 weeks after the accident, he asked when he could return to work. "Are you serious?" Velnara asked. "Yeah," Jiho said. "I'm a maintenance engineer. The station needs maintenance. I want to get back to my job." "You nearly died." "But I didn't," Jiho pointed out. "I survived. And now I know I can survive almost anything. Why would I let fear stop me?" Velnara had no answer for that. She cleared him for light duty, against her better judgment, and she watched as he returned to work, climbing into access tunnels and fixing broken systems just like before. The only difference was that now, every crew member who saw him looked at him with a mixture of respect and wonder. The human who had survived vacuum. The human who had refused to die. Velnara updated her research notes with the incident data. The evidence was overwhelming now. Humans weren't just resilient. They were survivors in the truest sense of the word. Their bodies fought to stay alive. Their minds refused to give up. They could be broken, but they wouldn't stay broken. She thought about the title of her research paper. She had been calling it Human Resilience, a Medical Study. But that didn't capture the truth. She changed the title to Human Survival, When Death Says No and Humans Say Yes. Dr. Thex studied the X-ray images for a long moment, his experienced eyes moving from one injury to another. He had spent 20 years treating combat casualties from a dozen different wars. He had seen soldiers who had been caught in explosions, crushed by falling debris and wounded by every type of weapon imaginable. But even in his vast experience, he had never seen a scan quite like this. This patient was a soldier? Thex asked, his voice quiet with something like respect. No, Velnara replied. He's an engineer. Maintenance division. No military service in his file. Thex's head turned sharply toward her. That's impossible. These injuries, this is torture. Or prolonged combat, multiple incidents over years. He pointed at different areas on the screen. Look at the healing patterns. These didn't all happen at once. They occurred at different times throughout his life. I know, Velnara said. That's why I called you. I don't understand what I'm looking at. We need to question him, Thex decided. Carefully. If this human was held prisoner and tortured, he may have psychological trauma. We should contact station security as well. There may be a criminal investigation necessary. They walked together to the consultation room where Jiho was waiting. Velnara had moved him there from the examination room, wanting a more comfortable space for what might be a difficult conversation. Jiho sat in one of the chairs designed for human proportions, looking at something on his personal data pad. He looked up when they entered and smiled. "Two doctors?" he said. "Is something wrong?" "You're making me nervous." Velnara and Thex sat down across from him. Velnara chose her words carefully. "Mr. Kim, we need to discuss your medical history. Specifically, we need to talk about your injuries." Jiho's expression shifted to confusion. "Injuries? I feel fine. The scan showed something bad?" Thex activated a wall screen and displayed the skeletal scan. Jiho looked at it with interest but no apparent concern. "Mr. Kim," Velnara continued, "your scan shows extensive trauma. Multiple severe injuries throughout your body, broken bones, skull fractures, spinal damage. Can you explain how these injuries occurred?" Jiho looked at the screen more carefully. Then, to both doctors' complete surprise, he laughed. It wasn't a nervous laugh or a bitter laugh. It was genuine amusement. "Oh, that old stuff?" Jiho leaned forward and pointed at his ribs. "See those ribs? That happened when I was 16. I was helping my dad fix our roof and I slipped and fell off. Landed on a metal fence. That really hurt." Velnara felt her primary heart skip a beat. "You fell from a roof? How high?" "I don't know, maybe 5 meters, 6? It was a 2-story house." Thex made a choking sound. On his world, a fall from 6 meters would rupture internal organs. Death would come within minutes, even with immediate medical care. "And you survived?" Thex asked, his voice strained. "Well, yeah," Jiho said, as if it were obvious. "I broke some ribs and had internal bleeding. Spent about 2 months in the hospital. It wasn't fun, 2 months." Velnara's mind struggled with this information. 2 months to recover from injuries that should have been fatal. Jiho continued, apparently not noticing their shock. He pointed to his right arm. "This one here, that's from when I was 12. Skateboarding accident. I tried to do a trick I wasn't ready for. The bone broke clean through. I remember seeing it sticking out of my skin. My friend said I screamed really loud. Compound fracture," Thex whispered. "And at age 12. A child. The skull fracture?" Velnara asked, her voice weak. "Oh man, that was funny. Well, not at the time. I was 9 years old playing baseball. I was standing too close to the batter, and he hit the ball straight into my head. Knocked me out cold. I had a concussion and they had to monitor me for brain swelling, but I was okay after a few weeks." "A few weeks?" Velnara repeated. "A projectile impact strong enough to fracture a skull. A child should have died. Brain damage at minimum." Jiho moved on, pointing at his left leg. "The femur thing, that was a motorcycle accident when I was 23. I was going too fast on a wet road and crashed into a barrier. The impact broke my leg in 2 places. That one took a while to heal. I had to use crutches for months and do physical therapy for almost a year. But you can walk normally now," Thex observed. "Yeah, the bone healed up fine. It actually aches a little when the weather changes, but otherwise it's good as new. Well, maybe stronger than new. My doctor back on Earth said healed bones are often denser than the original ones." Velnara and Thex exchanged looks. Stronger than new? Bones that break and heal denser? This went against everything they knew about biology. "Mr. Kim," Velnara said slowly, These weren't combat injuries. These weren't torture. You're saying these are just accidents? Normal accidents? I mean, I wouldn't call them normal, Jiho replied. I was pretty unlucky as a kid. My mom used to say I was accident-prone. But yeah, just regular accidents. Most people I know have broken something at some point. Most people? Thex's voice rose. Most humans have injuries like this? Well, maybe not this many, Jiho admitted. I was kind of clumsy growing up. But broken bones aren't that unusual. My sister broke her wrist twice. My best friend broke his collarbone playing football. My dad has had 3 concussions in his life. It happens, Velnara felt dizzy. She was Quilxian. Her species had light, efficient bones suited to their lower gravity homeworld. A broken bone was a serious medical emergency that required extensive treatment and often left permanent weakness. The idea of breaking bones multiple times as a normal part of life was horrifying. Let me understand this correctly, Thex said, speaking slowly and clearly. On your homeworld, children regularly suffer injuries that would be fatal to most species. And they simply recover? I guess so, Jiho said. I mean, people die from accidents sometimes. Bad car crashes, falling from really high places, that kind of thing. But yeah, broken bones and stuff we usually recover if we get medical treatment. Usually recover, Velnara repeated. On her world, usually recover was what you said about minor infections, not compound fractures and skull trauma. Jiho seemed to finally notice how disturbed the doctors looked. Hey, are you two okay? You look upset. Mr. Kim, Velnara said, I need you to understand something. The injuries you've described would be death sentences for most species in the Galactic Coalition. A fall from 6 meters would kill a Quilxian instantly. Multiple rib fractures would be fatal to a Crothian. A skull fracture with brain impact would end any chance of normal life for a Pelcrian. Jiho's eyes widened. Oh, I didn't know that. I guess humans are pretty tough. Tough, Thex said flatly. That's one word for it. Velnara pulled up a comparison chart on the screen. It showed the bone density of different species. Human bones appeared on the chart, and they were significantly denser than most other species. Not the densest in the galaxy, but far above average. Your bones are much stronger than ours, Velnara explained. But even strong bones break. The difference is what happens after. Your body repairs the damage and makes the bone even stronger at the break point. Most species can't do that. Our bones heal weakly if they heal at all. Huh, Jiho said, looking at the chart with interest. I never thought about it like that. On Earth, we think of humans as kind of fragile. We're not the biggest or strongest or fastest animal on our planet. What kind of planet did you evolve on? Thex asked, leaning forward. Well, Earth has a lot of different environments, but I guess overall it's pretty active. We have extreme weather, dangerous animals, lots of diseases. The gravity is higher than most planets I've visited on this station. Higher gravity, Velnara said. That explained the dense bones. But it didn't explain the healing. Mr. Kim. Do all humans heal like you do? She asked. Pretty much. Some people heal faster than others. Kids heal really fast. Old people take longer. But yeah, if a bone breaks, it usually heals within a few months. We've got good medical technology, too, which helps. Thex stood up and began pacing. This changes everything. If humans can survive this level of trauma as children, as accidents during normal life, then they're far more resilient than any species currently serving in high-risk positions on this station. I don't understand, Jiho said. Velnara tried to explain. In the Galactic Coalition, certain jobs are considered too dangerous for most species. Deep space repair work, hazardous material handling, emergency response in dangerous conditions. These jobs have very few applicants because the risk of permanent injury or death is so high. But for humans, these risks might not be as serious, Thex finished. A human could survive accidents that would kill 3/4 of the station's population. Jiho sat back in his chair, processing this information. So you're saying I'm hard to kill? Very hard to kill, apparently, Velnara confirmed. That's kind of cool, actually, Jiho said with a grin. Though I'm not planning to test it any further. I've had enough broken bones for one lifetime. But Velnara and Thex both knew the testing had already happened. It had happened throughout Jiho's entire life, and he had passed every test simply by living. The news spread through the medical community on Harmony's Rest like fire through dry grass. Within 2 days, every doctor on the station knew about Jiho Kim's X-ray. Some thought it was a mistake. Others thought it was a unique case, but Dr. Velnara had a different theory, and she was determined to test it. She requested permission to review the medical files of every human on the station. There were 43 humans living and working on Harmony's Rest. She wanted to examine them all. The station's medical director, a cautious Pelcrian named High Physician Kex, initially refused. "You can't examine every human without cause," Kex said. "They have rights to medical privacy." "Then make it voluntary," Velnara insisted. "Send out a message asking for human volunteers for a medical study. Offer them a small credit incentive. I guarantee they'll come." Kex agreed to this compromise. The message went out the next morning, offering 50 credits to any human willing to participate in a research study on comparative anatomy. By noon, 27 humans had volunteered. Velnara started the examinations immediately. The first volunteer was a woman named Hyun Park, a shuttle pilot with 15 years of experience. She was friendly and talkative as Velnara prepared the scanner. "I've never been part of a research study before," Hyun said. "This is kind of exciting." Velnara activated the scanner and watched the results appear on her screen. Her breath caught in her throat. Hyun's lower spine showed evidence of severe compression damage. 3 vertebrae had clearly been crushed and had somehow healed. The injuries were old, perhaps 5 or 6 years, but they should have left her paralyzed. "Ms. Park," Velnara asked carefully, "have you ever injured your back?" "Oh yeah," Hyun replied casually. "About 6 years ago I was in a shuttle crash. We had an engine failure and hit the ground pretty hard. I broke my back in 3 places. The doctors said I might never walk again, but I proved them wrong. Did a year of physical therapy and got back in the pilot seat." "You broke your back," Velnara said slowly. "And you're still a pilot." "Best pilot on this station," Hyun said with pride. "The accident made me more careful, actually. I never skip safety checks now." The second volunteer was a security officer named Taeyang Choi. His X-ray showed a jaw that had been shattered and reconstructed. When Velnara asked about it, he explained that he'd been hit in the face during a bar fight when he was 19. "It was stupid," Taeyang admitted. "I said something I shouldn't have, and a guy punched me. Broke my jaw in 4 places. They had to wire it shut for 2 months. I couldn't eat solid food. Lost a lot of weight, but it healed up fine." "And you still work in security?" Velnara asked. "A job where you might be hit again?" "Sure," Taeyang said. "I'm better at dodging now." The third volunteer was a botanist named Yuna Lee. Her X-ray showed something that made Velnara called Dr. Thex immediately. "Come, look at this," she said over the communication line. Thex arrived quickly and stared at the screen. "Is she missing part of a lung?" "The left lung appears to be only half the normal size," Velnara confirmed. They called Yuna back into the consultation room. She seemed surprised by their concern. "Oh, that," she said. "I had really bad pneumonia when I was 7. It damaged my left lung permanently. I've only got about 50% function on that side." "And you can breathe normally?" Thex asked. "Pretty much. I get winded if I run too fast, but otherwise I'm fine. The right lung compensates. Human lungs are pretty adaptable." One by one, the volunteers came through. Each X-ray told a story of survival. A construction worker who had lost 2 fingers in an accident and learned to work just as well with 8. An accountant who had survived a house fire at age 12 and had burn scars over 30% of her body. A teacher who had been struck by lightning as a teenager and had permanent nerve damage in one arm. Every single human had a history of injuries that would have killed or permanently disabled most other species. And every single one of them had simply adapted and continued living. By the end of the week, Velnara had examined all 27 volunteers. She compiled her data and started looking for patterns. What she found was both fascinating and terrifying. Humans broke bones on average 3 to 5 times during their lifetime. This was considered normal. Common childhood injuries included broken arms, cracked ribs, and concussions. Most humans had scars from cuts that would have required major surgery for other species. Many had survived vehicle accidents that should have been fatal, but the injuries were only part of the story. The healing was what truly amazed Velnara. She discovered that human bones, when broken, would deposit extra calcium at the breakpoint. The healed bone became denser and stronger than the original. It was as if each injury was a learning experience for the body itself. She found research papers in the human medical database that explained more. Human skin could regenerate over large wounds, forming scar tissue that was tougher than normal skin. Human livers could regenerate if up to 60% was removed. Human blood could clot quickly to seal wounds. Human immune systems were so aggressive that they could fight off infections that would be fatal to most species. The more she read, the more she understood. Humans weren't just tough. They were designed for survival. She looked up Earth's history in the Galactic database. The planet was classified as a high-risk world. Higher gravity than 70% of inhabited planets. Extreme temperature variations. Frequent geological activity. Thousands of predator species. Millions of bacterial and viral organisms. Throughout human evolution, Earth had been trying to kill them. And instead of dying, humans had adapted. Their bones became denser to handle the high gravity. Their immune systems became fierce to fight the diseases. Their skin became tough to protect against the environment. Their minds became stubborn to survive the psychological stress of constant danger. Every system in their body was built around one simple idea: survive no matter what. Velnara called a meeting with the station's senior medical staff. She presented her findings to 12 doctors representing 8 different species. She showed them the X-rays, the medical histories, the research data. What you're seeing is the result of evolution on a death world, she explained. Humans call Earth a paradise, but by galactic standards, their homeworld is extraordinarily dangerous. They evolved to survive it. But surely they can still die, one doctor objected. They're not immortal. Of course they can die, Velnara agreed. But they're remarkably hard to kill. They have redundant systems. 2 lungs, 2 kidneys, 2 eyes, 2 ears. If one fails, the other can often compensate. Their bones break and heal stronger. Their skin grows back over wounds. Their minds refuse to give up even when their bodies are failing. She pulled up a comparison chart showing injury survival rates across different species. Humans were near the top of every category. Falls from height, impact trauma, blood loss. Exposure to extreme temperatures, humans survived them all at rates 2 to 3 times higher than the galactic average. There's something else, Velnara continued, something I found in their psychological profiles. Humans have a concept they call spite. It means doing something difficult just to prove it can be done. When a human is told they'll never walk again, they often recover out of pure determination to prove the doctor wrong. This mental resilience is as important as their physical resilience. Dr. Thek spoke up from the back of the room. I've been treating alien species for 20 years. In all that time, I've learned one important truth. Attitude affects recovery. Patients who want to live, who fight for survival, they do better than patients who give up. If humans have this spite as a cultural trait, it would significantly improve their survival rates. So what does this mean for us? Another doctor asked. How does this change how we treat human patients? Velnara had thought about this question for days. It means we need to revise our treatment protocols. When a human is injured, we can't give up as quickly as we might with other species. Their bodies will fight for survival longer. Their minds will push through pain that would break others. We need to match their determination with our own. It also means, Thex added, that humans are valuable for high-risk operations. They can survive situations that would kill most of us. The meeting lasted 3 hours. By the end, every doctor in the room had agreed to implement new human-specific medical protocols. They would research human medicine more deeply. They would adjust their expectations for recovery times. They would never again underestimate what a human could survive. As the meeting ended and the doctors filed out, Velnara remained in her seat, staring at the wall of X-rays she had collected. Each one was a roadmap of pain and survival. Each one told a story of a human who had been broken and had simply refused to stay broken. She thought about Jiho, laughing about his injuries as if they were funny childhood stories. She thought about Hyun, flying shuttles despite a broken back. She thought about Yuna, breathing with half a lung and considering herself perfectly healthy. These humans, they were incredible, not because they were invincible, but because they were breakable and they broke often and they just kept going anyway. That was true strength. That was real resilience. And Velnara realized that the galaxy had no idea what it had gained when humanity joined the Galactic Coalition. Dr. Velnara adjusted her viewing screen and prepared for another routine examination. In her 40 years of medical practice, she had seen thousands of patients from hundreds of different species. Today's appointment was with a human engineer named Jiho Kim, who needed his yearly checkup before his work contract could be renewed. She had treated humans before. They were interesting creatures with their strange two-sided bodies and oddly aggressive immune systems. But this would be her first time doing a complete skeletal scan on one. The previous human patients had only needed simple treatments for minor issues. Jiho walked into the medical bay with a relaxed smile on his face. He was 32 years old, average height for a human, with dark hair and an easy manner that suggested he had done this many times before. He wore the standard gray uniform of the station's maintenance division. "Good morning, Doctor," Jiho said cheerfully. "I hope this won't take too long. I've got a reactor calibration scheduled for this afternoon." Velnara's translator device converted his words perfectly. She gestured with her primary hand toward the scanning table. "Please lie down, Mr. Kim. This will only take a few minutes. The scanner is completely safe and painless." Jiho climbed onto the metal table and lay flat on his back. These tables are always so cold," he joked. "You'd think with all our advanced technology, someone would invent a warm scanning table." Velnara made a sound that her species used for polite acknowledgement. She had learned that humans often made light conversation during medical procedures to ease their own nervousness. It was a harmless quirk. She moved to her control panel and activated the deep tissue scanner. The machine hummed to life, its sensors beginning their work. "Just stay still and breathe normally," she instructed. "This will create a complete map of your skeletal system and internal structures." "No problem, Doc," Jiho replied. He closed his eyes and began humming a tune quietly to himself. Velnara watched the scanning progress on her monitor. The machine worked quickly, sending radiation through the human's body and building a three-dimensional image of everything inside. First came the skin and muscle layers, then the organs, and finally the bones themselves. When the skeletal image appeared on her screen, Velnara froze. Her 3 hearts began beating faster. Her secondary hand trembled slightly as she leaned closer to the display. This couldn't be right. There had to be some kind of error with the machine. The human skeleton looked like a battlefield. Everywhere she looked, she saw signs of damage. Hairline fractures that had healed. Evidence of massive breaks that had somehow fused back together. The skull showed clear impact trauma on the left side. Multiple ribs displayed the telltale signs of having been shattered and reformed. The spine had compression fractures at several points. The right femur, one of the largest bones in the human body, showed unmistakable evidence of having been completely broken in half at some point in the past. Velnara's medical training took over. She began scanning through different views and angles, zooming in on various sections. Each new angle revealed more horror. The left arm showed 2 separate breakpoints. The right ankle had clearly suffered severe trauma. Even the small bones in the hands showed old fractures. This wasn't just one injury. This was systematic, repeated trauma. On her homeworld, a skeleton showing this much damage would belong to someone who had been tortured for years, or perhaps a soldier who had survived dozens of battles. This level of injury should have meant death or at the very least permanent disability. But Jiho Kim was an engineer. His file said he worked on routine maintenance. He had no military background, no combat experience, no mention of any major medical incidents. Velnara's mind raced through possibilities. Had there been some terrible accident that wasn't recorded in his file? Was this human a survivor of some catastrophic event that had killed everyone else involved? Had he been held prisoner and tortured before joining the Galactic Coalition? She looked over at Jiho, who was still lying peacefully on the table, humming his little tune. He seemed completely relaxed. There was no sign of pain or discomfort. He certainly didn't carry himself like someone who had survived repeated trauma. Perhaps the machine was malfunctioning. Velnara ran a diagnostic check on the scanner. Every system came back green. The machine was working perfectly. She ran the scan again, focusing on specific areas. The results were identical. The damage was real. The healing was real. All of it was real. Velnara pulled up Jiho's medical history file on her secondary screen. She read through it carefully, looking for any mention of major injuries or surgeries. The file was surprisingly thin. It mentioned a few sick days for minor illnesses. One entry about a broken leg 6 years ago that had required standard treatment. Nothing else significant. A broken leg. The file treated it as if it were nothing important. But Velnara was looking at a femur that had been snapped completely in 2. On her world, such an injury would require multiple surgeries, metal implants, and would likely leave the victim unable to walk properly for the rest of their life. Yet Jiho's file suggested he had recovered and returned to work within months. She looked at the skull fracture. That kind of impact should have caused brain damage. Permanent brain damage. But Jiho was clearly functioning perfectly well. He held a complex job that required significant technical knowledge and skill. The ribs were another mystery. She counted at least 5 that showed evidence of serious breaks. Broken ribs could puncture lungs, damage the heart, cause internal bleeding. Any one of those injuries could be fatal. Yet here was a human who had survived multiple rib fractures and seemed completely healthy. Velnara realized her hands were shaking. In all her years of medical practice, she had never seen anything like this. She had treated warriors who had survived terrible battles. She had seen patients who had been in devastating accidents. But none of them had this many old injuries, and none of them had recovered so completely. She needed a second opinion. This was beyond her experience. "Mr. Kim," she called out, trying to keep her voice steady. "The scan is complete. You can sit up now." Jiho opened his eyes and sat up on the table, stretching his arms over his head. "All done?" That was quick. "Everything look okay?" Velnara stared at him. This human who was casually stretching arms that had been broken and healed, asking if everything was okay. She didn't know how to answer that question. "Mr. Kim," she said carefully, "I need to ask you some questions about your medical history. Please wait here for a few minutes. I'm going to consult with a colleague." Jiho shrugged, unconcerned. "Sure, no problem. Take your time." Velnara left the examination room and immediately sent an urgent message to Dr. Thex, the station's trauma specialist. She attached Jiho's X-ray images to the message. Her message was brief. "Please come to Medical Bay 3 immediately. I need your expertise on a case." While she waited, she looked at the images again on her portable screen. The more she studied them, the more questions she had. How had this human survived? How was he walking around, working, living a normal life? What kind of species could endure this much damage and simply continue on? She thought about the file's casual mention of a broken leg and standard treatment. What did standard mean for humans? What level of injury did they consider serious? Dr. Thex arrived within minutes, his large frame filling the doorway. "What's the emergency?" he asked. Velnara simply turned her screen toward him, showing Jiho's skeletal scan. Thex's eyes widened. In his language, he whispered a phrase that meant, "Mercy of the ancestors." "Is this human still alive?" he asked. "He's in the next room," Velnara answered, "and he seems perfectly healthy." Both doctors stared at the screen in silence, trying to understand what they were seeing. Neither of them knew that they were about to discover something that would change how the entire galaxy viewed humanity.